Let's talk about chapter 8, which is all about sugar, sweeteners, and alcohol. So this is like a chapter that I want to know about, but I don't want to know about. So again, we will educate ourselves, we'll learn all we need to know, and then we apply what we can with the situation that we're in right now. So chapter 8 it starts with food. If you want to follow along, we're on page 87. If not, I'm going to read through it, share some thoughts, and hopefully you guys learn a few things. So let's dig in. So they introduce it by saying, here comes the part you've been waiting for or dreading, right? Because they're talking about sugar. No one wants to give up all their sugar. This is where we talk about all the food groups that don't pass our 4 good food standards. And they use like a little legend with numbers. And so they're going to review the 4 standards with us that we've been talking about over the last few chapters. So number 1. These foods fail our first, remember the first good food standard, which is a healthy psychological response, meaning anything that we eat should give us a very good, healthy psychological response, right? So if it fails this, that means these foods light up pleasure, reward, and emotional pathways in the brain, offering supernormally stimulating flavors without providing the nutrition that nature intended. These are foods with no breaks, promoting overconsumption and the inability to control your cravings, habits, and behaviors. The second one, these foods fail our second good food standard, which is a healthy hormonal response, right? Because everything we put in our mouth, food or drink, has some sort of impact on our body. Again, it's not just like a garbage disposal where we put everything in and it just kind of flushes out. We don't really know what happens. Everything does something to us. So with hormonal response, these foods disrupt your normal hormonal balance, promoting leptin resistance and insulin resistance and all the negative downstream effects that follow, disrupting glucagon's energy access function and elevating cortisol levels. Our third one is the foods that fail our third good food standard, which is support a healthy gut. These foods directly promote intestinal permeability, leading to a less than intact barrier that lets foreign substances get inside the body where they do not belong. Foods that fail our third good food standard by default will also fail the fourth, which is our fourth good food standard is support immune function and minimize inflammation, which we do not want inflammation. By creating intestinal permeability or directly promoting chronic systemic inflammation, these foods force your immune system out of a healthy balance. This can lead to the development of systemic inflammatory symptoms or autoimmune diseases that is a central risk factor for many lifestyle-related diseases and conditions. So the food we eat, right, needs to be healthy on our hormones and our gut, help with our immune system, reduce inflammation, right, have a good psychological response to us. So that's why it's important to understand, well, which foods do that for us, right? And before we get started, we know that there's some very fun foods in this group, foods that may form the vast majority of your daily diet, foods that may make you close this book, look up at the sky, and say these people are bananas. But before we tell you what they are, we just want you to ask a few simple questions. Question 1 is it just fine that some of the foods that you eat are controlling your behavior, making you crave things that you don't really want to eat, and proving impossible to resist even when you really truly try? Do you like energy slumps, brain fogs, insidious weight gain, frequent hunger pain, the inability to burn fat, and a metabolism that moves slower than molasses? Can you live with gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, abdominal discomfort, fatigue, malnutrition, and food allergies? Do you welcome an increase in illness, infection, aches, pains, and the signs of symptoms of innumerable diseases and conditions, some of which are irreversible? We bet you answered any one of these questions with a resounding, of course not, right? I don't want to live with any of that. So do us a favor, please, and remember your answers to these questions as you move through this section. And at some point, you'll have to weigh the fleeting pleasure of a slice of pizza, pint of beer, or frozen yogurt, again, one of the more against one of those scenarios we just spoke about. So we're going to start with the easy ones to kind of ease into this process. So just like we talked about, right, all of those things, inability to burn fat, brain fog, food allergies, fatigue, discomfort, bloating, all of those things come from different things that we eat based on what those do to our body. So keep those symptoms in mind. I don't want to have those. I don't want to feel like that. And so we need to learn about the foods that give us the opportunity, create the opportunity for those things to happen. So number 1, sugar and sweeteners. We're going to start with at least one thing we should all agree on, that sugar does not make you healthier. Just tastes really good. So do you want to argue with that? Can anyone make a case that added sugar contributes positively to our health? What may surprise you is both sugar and artificial sweeteners fail all 4 of our good food standards. We think of the sweet stuff first when describing foods that provoke an unhealthy psychological response, because the sweetness of sugar is addicting, right? It's eating an excess amount is very easy. The more sugar we eat, the more we get acclimated to high levels and the more we want. Artificial sweeteners may even be more problematic because they're designed to deliver a sweetness hit that is far beyond what you could ever find in nature. Aspartame equal and stevia are 200 to 300 times sweeter than the table sugar. Did you hear that? 200 to 300 times sweeter than just a normal sugar. Sucralose, or Splenda, is 600 times sweeter than table sugar. Saccharin, or Sweet and Low, is up to 700 times sweeter than table sugar. Remember the Vegas strip analogy? Artificial sweeteners are the very definition of supernormally stimulating. That's a lot. Personal experiences, obviously sugar impacts people, right? And we'll talk more about sugar, but I always thought like, oh, artificial sweeteners are better, right? And it kind of depends on what you're looking for. Calories and carb grams, right? Increasing calories. Artificial sweeteners don't have the calories, so then that has to be better. But I personally have done some testing lately on my own gut because I've had some problems, and I respond so poorly to artificial sweeteners, and it has destroyed my gut. Destroyed after all these tests that I've taken. And so I'm a firm believer that when you have a choice between sugar or artificial sweeteners, understanding both, doing it in moderation, watching and listening to your body to how you respond to both of those, and an excess of any is not great. So just because you're used to have 4 Cokes with full, loaded sugar, and now you're down to 4 Cokes with aspartame or whatever else is in there, there are still side effects to that type of sugar. And so if you have a Coke, but have 1 instead of 4, right? It's the dosage. So I also have a soda occasionally, but I have half of a can, or whatever works for you. That's the whole point of this. Is I read this and I'm like, oh yeah, I relate to all this because I've been doing a lot of research on my own body, and I have not responded very well to sugar, or especially artificial sweeteners. So I've had to adjust all that I've eaten, and I'm finally seeing some of my symptoms disappear. And so please just don't think, oh yeah, well, artificial sweeteners are better, or I've been told that they're healthier. Like they said, how many times sweeter is it? It can still impact your body. It's wrecked my body and my gut. And so just my little plug there, please don't fall into the trap of thinking it's healthy or it's not impacting your body, because it still does. And some of us respond worse than others. So teach our own, do what we want to do, but be very well aware that it is not a healthy option. Is it any wonder that we are slaves to the sweet stuff? These artificial sweeteners provide taste and reward sensations, the likes of which we biologically have never before experienced, burning our taste buds and pleasure centers out on stimuli that are simply otherworldly. It thus becomes harder and harder for us to experience the same level of pleasure and reward that we did the last time we ate them. And it makes it darn near impossible to appreciate the natural flavors found in fresh foods. So let's tell a story. At one of our nutrition workshops, after the section on artificial sweeteners, a lovely woman shyly raised her hand and asked, but if I can't sweeten my strawberries with Splenda, how do I make them taste sweet? Bless her heart, this phenomenon is all too common in artificial sweetener users. Added sugar is one of the quickest and easiest foods to provoke an unhealthy hormonal response. Overconsumption of sugar-sweetened, nutrient-poor, processed foods mean that blood sugar levels rise way too high too often, which promotes reliance on carbohydrates for fuel. Excess carbohydrates is turned into triglycerides, which along with chronically elevated blood sugar contributes to leptin resistance. It also means fat is not burned for fuel, which may lead to an accumulation of body fat. Leptin resistance promotes further overconsumption, which means fat accumulates inside cells, leading to insulin resistance, hyperglycemia, and chronically elevated insulin levels. Elevated cortisol levels promote stress-related cravings, which generally mean you reach for more sweet foods with lots of added sugar, and it's a very vicious cycle. So let's review leptin, in case you've forgotten. Your hormones may also have a role in this phenomenon. Research suggests that the taste organ, which is your tongue and taste buds, is a peripheral target for leptin. Leptin resistance, when your brain can no longer effectively sense leptin's message, may lead to an enhanced behavioral preference for sweet substances. When you're leptin resistant, the taste of sweetness is dulled, which makes you eat more to satisfy your craving. So you see how that plays right into the supernormally stimulating artificial sweeteners. And so it's just understanding how this works. And your body becomes resistant to it, and so we crave more. So just like, I've had that. I'll get fruit and I'll put, something else on it or add extra sugar because I want it sweeter, and it's because your body has been almost dulled to what a natural sweetener should be. Let's talk about empty calories. So we'll hammer yet another nail into sugar's coffin here. From a micronutrient perspective, sugar provides virtually nothing in terms of vitamin, mineral, or phytonutrients. No blackstrap molasses. Blackstrap molasses is not a healthy source of iron, since when do we look to sugar for iron anyways? All sugar provides is calories, 4 calories per gram, and it's the very definition of empty calories. All the energy with none of the nutrition, and that doesn't sound very sweet to us. So sugar also messes with the healthy environment of our guts. This is my problem. Specifically altering the delicate balance of good and bad bacteria. Unfriendly gut bacteria love refined sugars, which means that your added sugar intake serves only to promote the existence of the bad guys, right? We talked about that. And can reduce the population of the good guys, bacteria. This condition, called dysbiosis, can lead to gas, bloating, cramps, diarrhea, constipation, and inflammatory symptoms like fatigue, body aches, headaches, and joint problems. Artificial sweeteners like Splenda may also kill off your beneficial flora even when consumed in normal amounts. Finally, sugar promotes inflammation in the body in two different ways. Concentrated sugars added to processed foods promote overconsumption, which in turn promotes inflammation via leptin and insulin resistance. In addition, sugar's effect on gut bacteria and promotion of gut dysbiosis, like when bad bacteria are wreaking havoc, is by definition an inflammatory condition in the gut. That sums up all that I'm dealing with. I had a whole bunch of testing done, like I said, and my bacteria is way off. I have a whole bunch of different problems because of that. And I don't even eat that much sugar. I believe in having a treat every day. I will continue to have a treat every day. So this is saying for the challenge, right, we'll eliminate some of these things. But for everyday lifestyle, I feel like if we say no to an entire food group like sugar, I'm never gonna have sugar again, right? That's a hard lifestyle. It's gonna lead to disordered eating. So that's why I always say, yeah, have a treat every day. But then that means I can have more nutrient dense food choices, right? That do follow these good food standards throughout the rest of the day. Because I still know I'm gonna get something later in the day that's really delicious that doesn't have the nutrient value in it, right? This is when we have lots of things. And my issue is I have to, I'll grab convenience foods on the way because I'm in the car for hours leaving my house at 5 in the morning, and I don't have meals. I don't have a fridge. So it's like the convenience foods that just have more sugar and artificial sweeteners that I didn't realize because I'm eating those in the car as I'm going to place so I can get home and make a really good meal. And the rest of my meals are fantastic. They're not bad foods. There's not good or bad food. But when you look at how much sugar and artificial sweeteners add up through the day, some of us are just a little more sensitive. And the bacteria are very, very, very easy to get out of whack and very, very, very hard to get back. So inflammation, I find it everywhere. My thighs, I won't see my thigh muscle. Literally, it's so bad. I can shake my leg with water retention, and then it's all the way down through my calves and my ankles, and I'll take my socks off and my leggings, and I'll have a huge indent where that is because I have inflammation from a lot of this being off. So this isn't like a chapter of oh yeah, that's good to know it doesn't happen. I am literally experiencing this right now, and I'm on a whole bunch of supplements trying to get my stomach back on an entirely elimination of sugar, zero sugar or artificial sweeteners in anything. I have to read every single label because that feeds the bacteria and is causing inflammation. So I can talk to any of you guys about that in greater depth, but it is common. You think you're healthy, you think you're doing everything right. The sugar and artificial sweeteners can sneak up so easily and give you some of the worst symptoms. I can't, it's so hard for me to move my joint. I can come in, but I can't go to grip. Also from inflammation from the same issue. So when they talk about these things, it's oh my gosh, these are things that I'm currently dealing with. And if I'm dealing with these, I'm sure many of you guys are also. So I'm really hoping that we can look at a lot of the symptoms. Yeah, do I have this? How much sugar, artificial sweeteners are in my drinks, my supplements, the food that I'm eating? It's nuts when I read every label of where things are coming from. So again, this is just an awareness piece. Numerous reports have associated the use of various artificial sweeteners with various conditions like cancer, inflammatory bowel disease, migraines, kidney disorder, autoimmune conditions, carpal tunnel syndrome, and neurotoxicity. There have not been enough long-term studies on humans to definitively confirm or deny these associations, but for us, the potential risks represent additional downsides in an already very long list. More than enough justification to avoid artificial sweeteners altogether. And because I didn't want to do sugar, I eat a lot of things. Oh, it's got stevia, erythritol. It's got all these other things. It's a better choice, right? Because that's logically what is a better choice. But it didn't work out the way for my stomach. So just be aware of how much of those type of foods that you're eating. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about what we mean by added sugar. What is an added sugar when you're reading a label? First, we're not talking about the natural sugars that are found in whole foods like fruit, not fruit. Remember, we don't practice food reductionism. Fruit is not sugar, fruit is food. There is sugar in fruit, but as we'll soon discuss, that sugar comes in micronutrient dense package of vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, fiber, and water. And that kind of sugar is not the stuff we're cautioning you against. So sugars naturally found right in an orange compared to a Snickers is completely different as far as what are we getting when we make a food choice. Because this whole thing is not about restriction, like they said. It's about food choices on a kind of a good, better, best, or a more or less nutrient dense food choice. And it's just the awareness of if I have a Snickers or an orange, and it's how many times a day do you do that same choice. Yes, have a Snickers once a day if you want, but the rest of your day, the choices will be more nutrient dense. So added sugar is any form of sugar or sugar alternative added to foods or beverages when they're processed or prepared. It's the raw sugar you put in your coffee, the honey you add to your tea, or the agave syrup that sweetens your ice cream. We don't discriminate against the source or the form. We don't care whether it's all natural or unrefined, as you'll learn in this chapter. Sugar equals sugar. There are some metabolic differences between specific forms of sugar, glucose, fructose, and lactose. They'll all have one thing in common, a sweet taste that promotes an overconsumption and no significant nutrient value. Empty calories, which means there's nothing special or better about honey, maple syrup, agave, or blackstrap molasses. So again, we're talking about things that do not have any nutritional value in eating them. So not natural, the same goes for artificial sweeteners. NutraSweet, Equal, Splenda, Stevia. None is any more natural than the shoes you're wearing on your feet right now. Some are derived from nature, but after chemical processing, Splenda has more in common with pesticides than table sugar. And Stevia isn't any better. We dare you to find a Stevia leaf and chew on it for a while. It ain't that sweet, at least not until it's refined into white crystals in a laboratory somewhere. So in summary, sugar and artificial sweeteners fail all 4 of our good food standard tests and do not make you healthier. And yes, we know you're dying to ask the question, but if I am going to eat sugar, what form of sugar is the best? So we're going to save that for the next section. We're going to talk about alcohol first. So to conclude, sugar is one of the most, I think, tender, sensitive topics because it's in everything. It tastes delicious. It's part of the thing, I don't know, I feel like it brings joy to life. It's the center of most get-togethers, right? Good food with no nutrient value. So as they said, they're not talking about practicing food reductionism. It's not completely eliminating. It's just making you aware. We have 4 health food standards. The food that you eat, on the whole, should promote a really healthy, balanced life, right? Hormones, gut health, all those things we talked about. And depending on the percentage of the food you eat, does it come with nutritional value like a piece of fruit? Or is it just added to make it sweeter? Things that we don't necessarily need, like a Diet Coke that has all these artificial sweeteners. There's no nutritional value to that. But it does bring a sense of calm or peace, sometimes reduces anxiety, sometimes brings that little bit of balance of joy that you need because the rest of the day is crappy. So that's why we still have a treat every day. Just look at how many of those you're having. So that's all. Because again, I'm not going to tell you what to eat, but I will tell you if you want to look at how you're feeling, sugar is going to be one of the biggest culprits to look at. Last little tangent on this is when I started in 2017 and I was eating everything that I wanted. I had no concept about calories or food labels. I just didn't like how I felt. I was, as you guys know, very, very cranky, snappy, irritable, did not like myself, nor did probably my family at night by the end of the day. The only thing that I knew how to cut out, because I knew nothing about food at this point, was, well, common sense tells me I'm eating a lot of sugar. I have a lot of treats throughout the day, like a lot. From soda to ice cream, I'd have fruit by the foots with my kids. If they had candy, I'd have candy. I just ate things throughout the whole day. We made cookies, I'd have a couple cookies, like all of it throughout the day. And I realized, okay, I've put on quite a bit of weight. I feel like crap. I can't fit in my clothes. My eating choices. It's not my lack of exercise that got me, it's my eating choices. And I didn't know where to start because I didn't know much about foods. But like I said, common sense said it was the sugar. So I cut sugar out for 3 months, which started with this book that we're reading. Like I read this book and was like, okay, I can do the elimination diet for 1 month. 1 month so I can get rid of all these symptoms and then introduce the foods back to see which foods gave me those symptoms. So then I could figure out what works for my individual body. So I cut sugar out for a month and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm not gonna lie, like the hardest thing I've ever done. I found that I couldn't go to friends' houses or events the first week or 2 because I didn't have the self-control to not pick up a treat or candy or soda or anything that had no nutritional value, right? Fruit was great. I ate quite a bit of fruit because it gave me a little bit of sweetness. But anything that was out of box, no nutritional value. And I followed what they said. It got easier by week 3, like they always said. And then I felt so much better as I came to go to month 2. And I did month 3. And then it got to April 1st, which is my birthday. And all of my friends knew I was doing this because it was such a big deal because I was the laziest person on the planet. Literally, I had neighbors drop off gifts. You're finally gonna eat some sugar and have treats on your birthday. And I, by the end of the night, was back to being crabby and snappy. And it blew my freaking mind. So for 3 months, it affected and impacted my energy levels, how well I slept, my crankiness, my ability to not be tired and irritable with my kids. And it was my daughter, as a story I share with you all the time, comes in the kitchen, I'm at the fridge, and she says, "You seem happy," right? You've heard the story. I'm like, "Yeah, it's been a fine day." She's like, "No, you seem happy, you don't yell anymore." I lost it. Because giving up tons of treats and sugar and sodas and, oh my gosh, snow cones, whatever it is we were getting with all these little kids all day, it was so hard, especially when everyone else is eating it, right? Wherever you go, there seems to be, it's just, I don't know, that kind of food, junk food, whatever you want to call it. But it was a pleasure, right? To eat it makes you feel better, especially if I'm stressed or busy. And Didn't realize I was so addicted to it. But for my kids to see that I wasn't yelling, and that's when I realized, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. That's the most important thing. If I can give you that gift, being a more patient individual, whether it's at work, your spouse, or with your kids, my job is done. Then the nice thing, the perk to that, the side I hadn't necessarily thought would come is obviously cutting out all those sugars and snacks reduced my calories. So then I was in a deficit without even knowing it, and I lost body fat. That's how I did my journey. It started with literally sugar. And I realized, oh my gosh, there's something to food. I want to learn more, because I felt so much better. And the byproduct by changing my habits was my body then changed and I lost body fat. I started with the habit first. And so I get a little bit passionate talking about an excess of sugar, because that's what literally started my entire journey. I would not be here if it wasn't for not wanting to feel better and stop being so cranky with everyone around me. So there's your plug for really, really, really look at sugar. Give a go of reducing it, whether it just be 6 snacks to 5, and I mean the non-nutrient dense ones, 6 down to then 3, right? And then in a week or 2 later, go down to 2. Wean yourself off if you need to. Replace them with healthier snacks. So you're still eating, you're still getting calories, but you're pulling aside, and then leave 1 or 2 that are not nutrient dense, that are just for pleasure. But look at the balance of how much you're eating, and artificial sweeteners. Because of that, I'm still paying the price from years ago now with infections in my stomach, and my bacteria is off. So now I'm trying to heal from all the artificial sweeteners, because then I thought that was going to be better than sugar, which it's not. So I've just constantly on a discovery of trying to find what works for my body so I can reduce the inflammation. My joint pain disappears. I'm not as bloated. All of that's coming from some of the artificial sweeteners. So that's my tangent. Hope that touches one of you. Oh, this is almost done. This is another short, just a little section on alcohol. So personally, I don't drink alcohol. I never have. So I don't have any feedback on this one. So I'm just going to read through this. And again, it's the same concept though. If you want to have a drink, but have it in moderation, where you control it and decide and choose, this is what I want to do today, instead of just doing it for comfort, or the same as sugar, right? We eat those things to make us feel better. They can be comfort foods, or we don't even notice we do it, or how much we eat with sugar or alcohol while we're out. So this section is going to be short because alcohol, they're really to the point, which I like. Just remember that, right? They're just a little bit to the point, but said with love, because alcohol, as you know, has zero redeeming health qualities. None, right? Just like sugar, it just makes us feel better. We'd like the feeling of the rush of it, whatever it is. We don't care what you've heard about red wine or agave, tequila, or gluten-free beer. The common denominator of all these beverages is the alcohol. And the alcohol is a primary problem. We'll address this, how companies try to make it appear less guilty pleasure, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So alcohol fails all 4 of our good food standards. First, in terms of a healthy psychological response, alcohol is addictive, right? Not just the colloquial definition of addiction, it's actually addictive in the clinical definition, promoting the desire even in the face of negative consequences, tolerance to the effect of the substance, and withdrawal symptoms when use is reduced or stopped. We all know that, right? Regularly consuming things that are known to be clinically addictive doesn't sound super healthy to us, but for those of you who are merely social drinkers and not worried about addiction, alcohol still promotes an unhealthy psychological effect. Alcohol inhibits our inhibitory mechanisms, which means that when you are under the influence, you're more likely to make bad decisions. Consuming something that is going to blunt your judgment, leading to late night splurges on pizza, ice cream, or an entire tub of cookie dough does not facilitate your success in making good food choices. Furthermore, it takes only a small amount of alcohol to impair inhibitions and decision making, and the effects of the brain carry over until the very next day, which means that a drink or 3 on a Friday night may lead to weekends worth of poor food choices. Some of you may know what you're talking about. Others of you may have more control over it. From a hormonal perspective, alcohol consumption interferes with glucose function in the body and with the actions of regulatory hormones like insulin and glucagon. Even in well-nourished people, alcohol can disturb blood sugar levels, especially when combined with sugar. Jack and Coke, anyone? Alcohol increases insulin secretion, which pulls too much blood sugar out of the bloodstream, causes temporary hypoglycemia. Furthermore, alcohol can impair glucagon's normal function, leaving your blood sugar levels too low for far too long, which is a very stressful situation for the body. So, ready for some math? If sugar is empty calories, then alcohol has almost twice as many calories per gram as sugar. Then isn't alcohol the mother of all empty calories? It's got more than enough energy to mess up your hormones, but doesn't provide a lick of value nutrition-wise. So it's a lose-lose. So we talked about how sugar and carbs are 4 calories per gram. So if you have 1 gram of sugar, it's 4 calories, right? So then you just add that up throughout your day. Protein also, 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. We talked about fats earlier. 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. So you see how that eats up a lot of your daily calories, right? Because it's so much more. Alcohol is 1 gram, 7 calories. So also very high calorie. Finally, as a special bonus hormonal effect, acute and chronic alcohol consumption have been known to inhibit testosterone production. Numerous studies also show, rather conclusively in fact, that alcohol directly promotes intestinal permeability and overgrowth of gut bacteria, contributing to a leaky gut and all the downstream inflammatory effects. But that's not the only way alcohol affects your immune system. Both acute and chronic alcohol use impairs cellular immunity, leaving your immune system even less prepared to deal with inflammatory consequences. Alcohol is also pro-oxidative, meaning that it contributes to oxidation in the body. It reduces antioxidant levels by increasing free radicals, which, as we'll detail soon enough, contributes to chronic systemic inflammation, which we do not want. Even in moderate amounts, alcohol is acutely neurotoxic. It alters the normal activity of your nervous system, may cause damage to nervous tissue, and disrupt or even kill neurons, the cells that transmit and process signals in the brain and other parts of the nervous system. In layman's terms, it's why a few drinks makes you stumble, slur your words, and think you're a really good dancer. Other neurotoxins include mercury, lead, insecticides, formaldehyde, biotoxins, but no one ever talks from mercury daiquiri, now do they? We don't think these things neurotoxic potential as a healthy choice, right? Because none of those are very healthy. So let's discuss the arguments in favor of certain types of alcohol, like heart-healthy red wine. So these claims come from the people who manufacture and market alcohol. If you sold a product that was generally deemed unhealthy in the scientific literature, wouldn't you want to find one thing about your product that might make it sound less bad? Of course you would. So if you were Mr. Red Wine producer, you might read or fund some studies on the heart-healthy effects of certain antioxidants like resveratrol. Realize your wine contains tiny amounts of this healthy compound and start marketing your wine as heart healthy. We can hardly blame him. After all, Mr. Red Wine producer isn't looking out for your health, he's looking out for his profits, which is nothing wrong. He's running a business. Finding something healthy about his product is very, very good for business. Problem is, it's a technicality. A fluid ounce of red wine averages 160 micrograms of resveratrol, never heard of that one, with a wide range of variability between bottles and sources. So most research on resveratrol has been done in animals, not people, and to get the same dose of that used in the mice studies, a person would have to drink more than 60 liters, which is 80 bottles of red wine every day. The other thing that Mr. Red Wine producer doesn't mention is that resveratrol, you know what I'm saying, resveratrol, whatever, is red wine actually comes from the skin of red grapes. So instead, just eat the red grapes. You'll get all the potential reported benefits of that and none of the downsides of alcohol. Win-win, except if you're Mr. Red Wine producer. The argument is the same for 100% agave tequila or gluten-free beer. Just because manufacturers have found a way to make their products less bad doesn't mean that they're good for you. We're not interested in less bad. Our mission is to prevent you with optimal. So good news. There's got to be some good news because this chapter, like I said, is not fun, right? Hear us out now. We're not saying that you can never eat any sugar or drink any alcohol ever again, which is what I've been trying to say. We simply want you to make educated decisions about foods. We don't want you justifying your choices with marketing pitches or telling yourself that's because it's gluten-free, low-carb, or heart-healthy, it's a perfectly fine choice. Why go through that self-deception when the fact is just plain delicious is good enough reason by itself to indulge? So we're not food robots. We like to indulge from time to time, just like the rest of you, but we're honest about our reasons and we want you to be honest too. This food or drink is not making me healthier, but that's okay because it's delicious, special, culturally relevant, emotionally significant, and we support those reasons. So again, when you are eating something or drinking something, am I addicted to this? Am I craving it? Am I eating it and I don't actually want it? Am I eating it because I'm bored is a big one. Am I eating it because I have anxiety or I'm in emotional pain or I'm trying to deal with something and it's a comfort food? Am I eating it just because I just like it, right? This goes to drinking also. So all we want is to be honest in saying this food or drink, say to yourself, I realize it's not making me healthier, but it's okay because I'm choosing to eat it in this moment, choosing, right? Not a slave to it, but choosing because it's delicious, special, culturally relevant, or emotionally significant. When it comes to less healthy foods, understand that the less and less often you indulge in them, the healthier you'll be. Where we draw that line is totally up to you. We'll talk a lot more about this later. We wanted to mention it now so you can stop wondering if we're trying to ruin your life. The next chapter we're going to talk about is all about seed oils. So that one's done. That's probably by far the hardest. That was the hardest for me when I read this because I read it before I knew nothing. So it was just like an utter shock because I sat there and I was like, this takes out half of my calories a day if I take out sugar or artificial sweeteners. And again, I don't drink alcohol. I don't really like it, right? Because I don't want to change those habits. I'm resistant to it. They bring me joy a lot of times. But when we can step back and look at all the other symptoms that we get from this, and do we crave it? Do we have control over it? you got to check yourself and looking at, do I have moderation in these things? So I agree with that. I've been constantly preaching 1 snack a day, 1 treat a day. And if you need 2, as long as they all fit within your calories and the majority of your foods come with nutrients, fantastic. Enjoy guilt-free that item. But I talk to so many of you that are like, I just can't lose body fat. I can't get the scale to go down. I don't know how to change these habits. I feel like a slave to it. I can't give up sugar. I binged again on them. And I think it's understanding and stepping back and just saying, I really don't want as many, right, serving sizes of this food as that I'm eating. I see all the negative effects. I see that it controls me and I don't like that feeling. If I can't step away from something and walk away and not think about it again, right, that's the issue with it. It's controlling us instead. And so that gives us an opportunity for a place of healing, which is what I went through, to where I took time to understand what I was eating and why. Like, look, am I eating this because I'm bored? Because I can't control my emotions? Because I want it? It's making me feel better. Dopamine, the rush that we get from eating it, like, why, right? And then everything I put in my mouth, I had to stop and analyze. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't really need to eat for that. I can find another reason to solve that problem or to soothe that ache or whatever it is I was doing to eat it. Not only that, some of them where I just craved it and wanted more of it. That showed me that, okay, this is gonna be a tough 2 to 3 weeks, but I do need to reduce how much I'm eating. So 100%, just like they said, this is not a do not eat any of it. Just, this is probably one of the biggest things keeping clients, friends, from reaching their goals, because for one, it adds so many calories. And the whole point of this is to be in control of our eating choices and to be healthy without any disordered eating. And when you are healthier, you're in control of those choices. You have some of it a plan. You're okay when you go off plan, and you feel okay about that, knowing that you'll just start back up the next day or after that, because we all have days where we binge and enjoy food. Enjoy it, but just don't make it a common occurrence to where it's all day, every day. And then check your artificial sweeteners. Please don't fall into that trap, like I said, of thinking, oh, that's in everything I'm eating all day, I'm gonna be okay. It will catch up to you with a lot of the symptoms that you're having, because I'm experiencing them myself. So in any capacity, this chapter usually leads the most questions. It also causes the most change in habits every single day. So just take it with a grain of salt, evaluate what you're eating every day, how much of it you're eating, and what's in your food labels. And let me know if I have, if you have any questions that how I can better, honestly, through this section, best support you.